Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you start, Mr. Chairman, you guys are incredibly well coordinated tonight with the boas and the stuff.
That's planning.
This is impressive.
We came in early and did that.
Color coordinated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of December 14th, 2023. First on the agenda is Carmel Fire Department, 94 Glenita Avenue for a public hearing. Mike, I don't believe you had any comments, correct?
That is correct.
Rich?
No, there's no problem with the waiver, except that in speaking with the town council, not Joe, unfortunately Joe, they would like to have an easement because they're putting some of the amenities on top of a sewer line that's there. So we'd like to have an easement recorded and filed that must identify the limits of the improvement within the easement and contain language which can acknowledges the proposed improvements would have to be removed or relocated if repair to the town sewer would be required. I had spoken to Mike Engel about that, and he's aware of it, so it's something that Greg can develop, or maybe Joe does, I don't know who does that for the easements, but it's something we just like as part of the record, as part of this project.
I think Adam should do it, and then you approve it now.
Joe, do you have any comments, Joe? Any comments on this? No. Pretty straightforward, right? If the line leaks, we need to fix it, right? We need to move anything that's there, right? Pat?
No issues on this again, Mr. Chairman, and again, it's great if they fix it, that's what that would say.
Any questions from the board?
Not for me, Mr. Chairman.
Just for clarity, Rich, the town council will draft the easement.
No.
Why don't you draft it, and then they'll approve it?
We'll draft it for your approval.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna just say.
Does anyone from the public wish to be heard on this?
Is that sewer line, or is it sewer underneath there? Is it located on the map?
I believe so.
The easement's located.
Oh, it is, okay, good.
Okay, then if there's no public comment, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to make a motion to draft a waiver of site application. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike. Next on the agenda is Diamond Point Development 4 Baldwin Place Road. Zach, you have a busy night tonight.
Yes. So. Adam Thyberg, Insight Engineering, Surveying, Landscape Architecture, PC. We're here tonight to request that the board direct Pat to draft a conditional approval.
Is the mic on?
I don't think that mic is on.
Is it on?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's just gonna be a little closer.
How's that?
Better.
Yeah, there we go.
You may wanna.
Repeat, okay. So we're just here tonight to request, as the board's aware, the neg deck was approved at last month's meeting. We're here to request that the board direct Pat to draft a conditional approval for the January meeting.
Mike?
Yeah, by letter dated November 29th, 2023, the applicant granted an extension of the 45-day clock to January 11, 2024 to decide the application. If the board can, if we're going to open public hearings as early as we did in this case, either we need to leave the public hearing open or not open it so early, let them get a little bit closer to approval, so this way we're not leaving these open and trying to keep track. I think we
Yeah.
spoke about this the other day.
Yeah, noted.
It's a nightmare to try to keep track of the exact dates of meetings and how many days they have to
Yeah, we
give us
try
the
to move things
extension.
along to speed things up, but sometimes it backfires.
But if we're going to do it, it's fine. We should just leave it open, though.
Yeah.
Which they won't like, because then people can continue to make comments, but that's, you know,
Right.
you can't have both.
That's a good point. Rich?
So the applicant has acknowledged the necessary referrals that were needed, the permits that are necessary. They've provided a traffic study, which I think the consultant is reviewing. They will be, that approval will be needed as part of any planning board resolution. The SWIP is still under review. It needs to be reviewed by the New York City DEP. That might be a big stumbling or hurdle, because they can be a little onerous in their review process. Maintenance agreement will need to be, it should be, we will not be taking ownership. The town needs to, that needs to be noted, that we're not taking any ownership of the stormwater management practices. We need some bond information. If there is going to be a resolution, we need all the bond and engineering fees filled out. Applicant has acknowledged the fact that any work in the DOT, they're going to need approvals from them. Again, those need to be a part of the planning board resolution. And there's details on the well and septic and fire protection tanks must be provided, haven't been given. They will also need to be part of the planning board approval resolution. So some of those are coming from the county yet. So again, there's some approvals and pieces of the puzzle that still need to be looked at. So that's up to the board to move forward.
Thank you. Pat?
So they've addressed all the site planning issues, Mr. Chairman. Their question really is, are any of Rich's issues such that they would affect layout configuration or the site plan in any way? If they would, we don't move to approval a resolution. We move to approve to direct an approval resolution on a specific plan. So if the plan is not yet fixed, we wouldn't move to that next stage. So that's really a question for Rich.
So if I can respond to some of that. My understanding.
Adam, can you speak a little bit better into the microphone?
Yep,
I'm
I'm just
having
gonna-
a hard time tonight.
My understanding, based on conversation with Rose, is that there's been correspondence with Creighton Manning as far as the traffic, our response to the traffic comments, and that they have no further comments and they are satisfied. As far as the maintenance agreement bond information, we can certainly get that to Rich ahead of the vote on the potential vote on a resolution in January. None of the outstanding items, certainly there is outside permitting, as there very frequently is, and is very frequently included as conditions of approval, whether it be DOT, DEP, health departments. There is process going on now that we've gotten the neg deck, especially with the DEP. We're moving forward on that. We've made submissions to the DEP, and those things are moving along. There's nothing in there that we anticipate to have any substantive impact on the site. And the other details that Rich had mentioned are certainly things that we can provide, as a condition of the approval.
So I agree with Adam. The only caveats is that the DEP could say move something, right? We don't know that that's the case. They're starting in process with DEP. That would be a site change. So we're going to approve something that may be amended or altered by a different regulatory agency. Same thing with the DOT, right? They need an approval from them. They may say, hey, we don't like this opening the way it is. It might have to change. So again, it can be done the way it is right now, but as Pat alluded to, if there are site changes, we're going to approve something that may need to be changed again. Do we want to do that? So the way it is right now, everything looks good, but I can't speak for any of those two other outside agencies.
Every time one of those agencies make a change, if they make a modification of some sort, then it's got to go back. So what's the time frame from the agencies now? We don't know.
Unknown, Mr. Chairman, and DEP, as you know, could take a while, certainly DOT as well. So really, it's the applicant's jeopardy. You can grant this approval, but a modification from one of they're coming back and going through this process again, including a new public hearing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Questions from the board?
What do you think your timeframe is going to be to get approvals?
We're looking in the next handful of months. The applicant's target construction date is spring, summer of '24.
That's too soon for us.
So, I will say, my experience here has been that the approvals of, DOT approvals and Health Department and DEP have been conditions of approval before. My understanding is if there were some minor adjustment, it would be obviously at the board or the consultant's discretion as to whether it needed to amended site plan, if it rose to a level of change that, required that.
If it helps, Mr. Chairman, one of the things I would offer is Insight knows the agencies. So they know what's expected of them. It's not as though this is an engineer that's unfamiliar with working with those agencies. So for whatever that's worth, that may help you make your decision.
Questions from the board?
As far as options, I mean, we do have the option of giving a conditional approval. However, the public hearing becomes another issue.
Yeah, if there's a change and you deem it to be a significant change, you'd have to have a new public hearing on the site plan.
Rightfully so, right, because it might affect.
Yeah. Particularly something like the curb cut. If it shifts up the road 50 feet, you want to get public input on that.
As far as the driveway design goes, I have been in touch with Colliers, who is heading up the permitting with DOT and county, and I've heard that they're making good progress and they're getting very close to a breakthrough with both of those agencies. So we don't anticipate any, material change in terms of the location of those driveways or the shape of it or anything significant.
I'm just not sure it benefits us if it's still a few months away from proceeding any further at this point. When you get one of the agencies, when you get close, I certainly don't want to slow down any applicant, and I like doing things in parallel personally. But to go forward with a resolution now and wait on it, just sit on it for a couple months and possibly risk doing another public hearing, I think I'd suggest that we just hold on to it, and when you get closer, instead of a couple months, when you get a month or two, then get on the calendar with Rose early on.
So, Mr. Chairman, there could be an interim step, which is send Adam to those agencies to
Right.
report back to you with something specific from them.
That's fair.
And DOT will occasionally say, we're going to issue the permit. We just haven't gotten around to issuing the permit. So if you can get something affirmative from them, maybe that would give you some level of confidence.
Yeah.
Step it up.
Okay, so if we were to report back at your January 11th meeting, maybe it's the second meeting in January, we'd be
You
able
have
to.
something more tangible.
Yeah, I don't want to string this along any further, but I just don't want to have it just hang out there for three months with no action on it either. But the board's willing to move it along with you when you're ready, and we won't be a hinder or slow down, as long as all the work is prepared properly. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, sounds good.
John? Bob? Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thanks, Adam. You're gonna stay up there, I guess, huh? Next on the agenda is Union Energy Center, 24 Miller Road. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
Yeah, it's basically the same comments as last time. Are we doing the site plan or subdivision or both? So site plan is the same comments, fire department satisfied as long as you do the 4 or 5 things. Site plan, subdivision, there is one nonconformity, but they don't need a variance because they're increasing the lot area of an existing. The only question is, there was supposed to be another lot off of one of the residential streets that's not shown on anything. Is there a reason why it's not shown?
In the southeast corner, or somewhere else.
East, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been in discussions with the landowner to hammer out some of the details.
Oh, I'm sorry, for the people on TV, introduce yourself and use the microphone.
Scott Connick with East Point Energy. We've been working with the landowner to hammer out a couple more details, and so that has not been, the eastern subdivision has not been fully.
All right, so until that's complete and we know what we're looking at, we really shouldn't move this too far along because it's not, we don't know what we're looking at yet.
Right, and we're hoping to
Lot-wise.
have that cleared up fairly soon.
Rich?
All right, so, I guess we're looking at subdivision, right? That's no. So the lot line, no comments on that, except to follow in Mike's lead on that. Referrals, standard referrals, they've acknowledged them. Applicant requested to be referred to the ECB. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to go. There was a report provided, wetland function value impact report. Page 6 does not provide a summary for the impact on bog turtles. It looked like it was just a typo. Whoever did it copied the one from the prior study, not the bog turtle, but something else, whatever they were referring to. It's recommended the mitigation plantings plan and 5-year post-construction monitoring period be provided for the town for review, that the applicant provide the annual report to the town. I think it was being provided to the state, and the mitigation plantings be bonded. Permits, applicant has acknowledged the permits. They've acknowledged that a SWIP is needed, and they'll provide that in a future submission. That will need also to go to the New York City DEP for their review. Performance bond, engineering fee needs to be provided. They need to provide all site distance calculations. They provided site distances, but not the calcs. Slopes at the entrance have been defined, but they need to provide a driveway profile for the entire length. They've acknowledged that comment. We'll provide it in the future submittal. Applicants acknowledge comments regarding to rim and invert elevations of the drainage system, hydraulic calculations, and acknowledge comments with regards to the full SWIP and the drainage system as part of a future submittal. So when those come in, we'll review them and we'll have comments at that point in time, or maybe not. So,
Thanks, Rich and Pat.
So Rich mentioned the wetland issue with respect to this. So there's a wetland impact. The driveway that's going to access the facility crosses a wetland. It's a local, state, and federally regulated wetland. So it requires not only the ECB's approval, but DEC and the Army Corps. It's a relatively small impact to the wetland, and there is a little bit of buffer impact associated with that. They are mitigating that, as Rich mentioned, through a planting plan. Typically, our wetland mitigation plans look for something like a 2-to-1 replacement ratio. They're doing 12-to-1.
Nice.
So it's an extensive, just that gives you a sense, it's an extensive replanting plan. And it's really functionally improving this wetland area, so it's all along the driveway that gets through that wetland area. So not only is it extensive in the amount of plantings, but the functions those plantings will provide are significantly improved from what's there today. So that's good news with respect to that wetland mitigation. However, DEC and the Army Corps still have to weigh in on that. We asked about how often maintenance folks are coming to the site. A couple times a week, not a big deal, very low traffic impact, which is what Scott told you at the last meeting. Not a lot of tree removal, that's been clarified on the plan. There's a lot of open area within the site. They've given us a lighting plan, so at the property lines, they're 0-foot candles. There will not be lighting impacts off the site. They've given us details on the generators. They've given us an emergency response plan, firematic, fire safety plan, a decommissioning plan. And to Bob's point at the last meeting, there was a lot of conversation about the pilot. So they've submitted some of that information, and I hope Scott can clarify some of that for you this evening.
Thanks, Pat. Prior to me opening up to the board, Adam and Scott, is there anything you want to update us on?
Yeah, just a couple of quick updates. One, we did provide, as was mentioned, we provided the wetland functional assessment. We are asking, we think, and it sounds like Rich agrees that it's an appropriate time for us to just have an initial meeting with the ECB, just to make an initial presentation to get their sense. So if the board would make that referral tonight, that would be great. I also just wanted to give the update that we are starting to, we're continuing to advance the stormwater design. We're hoping to do testing within the next several weeks. So you'll be seeing more on that with our upcoming submissions. One item I did want to point out is that we may be making some adjustment to the driveway with our next submission. We have heard from the fire chief, because we did reach out about, we've got a driveway graded, at least in through here. Initially, we graded it at 15% or under 15% as the town code requires. We reduced that just for ease of access with trucks to 12%. We have heard back from the fire department. They've asked if it were possible for us to reduce it to 8%. The thing to understand about putting this driveway into this slope is that the the less steep we try to make it, the further we have to go with it, the more distance we need in order to reduce, we're going the same elevation, so longer driveway means more disturbance. So what we would look to do is kind of a compromise. We think we can accommodate 10%. The fire code speaks about a maximum of 10%. But with the ability for the local fire officials to waive that to higher slopes. So we'd like to target 10%, since that's what's written into the fire code as being a compromise on that piece. And we think we can accommodate that. But the more we level off that driveway, the more disturbance we're going to wind up having and more disturbance potentially in the adjacent area. And so we're just trying to find that balance.
Will the driveway be paved, or what will the driveway be?
It'll be gravel or millings.
Questions from the board?
I have a few questions on 3 different subjects. Firstly, on fire safety, we have this governor's task force that you've alluded to and we've alluded to. And my understanding is it's going to be quite a long process for you to get all your regulatory approvals and do the construction and everything. What happens if recommendations come out of New York State about fire safety that would change what you have to do? What comfort do we get that you will adhere to those?
Change in what
Fires,
regard?
either construction or something to avoid the concerns of fire that have happened so far.
Yeah, so if there are new state codes that are required, then that we will need to update our plans to accommodate those. My understanding is that report is supposed to be released imminently, although obviously sometimes the state government, imminent can mean a few weeks, and that it's not going to significantly alter the landscape of the fire codes that already exist. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Probably by the next time we're here, or I'm here, we will have that in hand and can share.
Good. Second subject is on bonding. I see in the calculations that you've included as a net against the amount, the salvage value. And I guess the question to our team here is, do we normally in bonding net out the salvage value of the property?
It would normally be included.
It would be included. Okay, that was one question. And then on the
Decommissioning bond.
yeah,
Just like the cell tower.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, and then on the pilot, a few things. Where in the process will the Carmel town of Carmel assessor actually look at your numbers and tell us, or tell you, so you can tell us that he agrees with them?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. He may either wait for state guidance, which we don't know if that's coming, or until, we're much further along in the building process. But I don't know what he's thinking.
Would that have to happen in order for the pilot to be put to bed?
That's a good question. I've never actually gone all the way through the process before, so I'll need to check on that.
Okay. And then I guess if, it was very helpful, the numbers that you guys put together, puts things in context. A few different questions. In the assessed value going through the years, you see it starting at one level, and then after maybe the 7th year, it starts to drop off, and then much later in the number of years, I didn't count them up, it starts going up in value again. What accounts for that?
So with the pilot as proposed, which again is very much subject to change depending on what the IDA decides, we are proposing, in one example, paying X number of $1,000 per year per megawatt up to 15 years. So you're paying that level plus the fire department taxes for those first 15 years, and then you go back you basically go to the status quo as if there wasn't a pilot. So the taxes will significantly increase
But,
after
but
that.
I'm looking at this purple column, which assumes no pilot, and it's really the same across. You see it after about the 7th year, it drops down to 972,000. See that?
Yeah.
And then much later on, it goes from 981 up to 1 million and starts increasing again.
Yeah,
So I
so-
think that's a different issue.
Yeah, so the reason for that is we are assuming that the millage rate for Carmel is slowly increasing over time. In this, we assume 2% per year. Obviously, we don't know precisely how that will go, so that accounts for the increase, or at least some of it.
Okay. And then, just as an economic proposition, when you look across the 3 scenarios, why would one ever choose, why would a town ever choose to do a 20 or 25-year pilot when they can make so much money so much more quickly on a 15-year?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In the longer pilots, we're paying more dollars per year or per megawatt upfront. So you're getting more money sooner. Dollar today is worth more than $1 10 years from now. And so it depends on what the community wants to have more of it upfront or more
I
of it
see.
over time.
Okay, got it. That's it.
Any other questions from the board?
Good for me.
I do have a question I wanted to ask last time and I forgot. Is there going to be a secure gate entry to the site?
Yes.
How tall?
Typically about 6 feet, but that can be altered if needed.
And is there enough room for a vehicle to pull up off the road to unlock the gate?
Yeah, the gate would be here,
Yeah, we said, okay.
so you've got a good piece of space there for.
And did we say there's cameras on the site?
Yes, I think there's typically security cameras so that if, motion, or, with motion sensors, so if something is inside the facility that's not supposed to be there, someone gets alerted.
And the entire facility has a fence around it.
Correct. All the batteries, all the
That's what I mean, the
substations.
facility,
Yeah.
not the land, but the actual facility, what's there.
So yeah, we're showing fencing around each enclosure here where the battery storage is.
No barbed wire, correct? No barbed wire.
No,
Good.
and around each substation.
If I may ask, is there a specific reason not to have barbed wire? Because in some cases, for
It's not
safety
allowed.
reasons- Oh, it's not allowed?
Yeah,
Okay,
nothing sharp on a fence.
okay.
We've looked at this for quite a bit. I'm in favor of actually sending this off to the ECB if the rest of the colleagues here are. At least we can get things done in parallel. They have a lot of work to do yet, but if we can get you in front of ECB as you're working with Rich and the others on the others, I think it'd be beneficial to everybody.
Yeah, that's what we're thinking, that, we'll make a stop at the ECB, get their initial input, and at the same time, we'll advance things with Rich.
Exactly.
And then we'll come back and take it from there.
Someone make a motion to refer to the ECB.
I'll make a motion that we refer this to the ECB.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
And if I may make one comment, and stop me if this is not how you typically do it. Last week, one of our projects reached commercial operation. Obviously, it wasn't enough time to submit to this application, but we have a short write-up about that project, which we can either give to you in person or submit with the next batch.
Should we go through Rose, or, yeah, why don't you just send it to
Okay.
Rose, and then at the next meeting, you can describe it to us.
Okay, perfect.
And this way, Rose will distribute it to us, and we'll have time to read it prior to the meeting.
Sure does history.
Next on the agenda is Sereno Amaro, 205 East Lake Boulevard, special site plan, boathouse.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
I do. The applicant proposes to add a boathouse to his property on East Lake Boulevard in Mahopac. Zoning table needs to be corrected. If you want to come sit with me 5 minutes, we could correct a few things. There's no front yard setback requirement on a dock lot, so we don't have to include that. 2 variances are required from the zoning board, and the project needs to be referred to the ECB for comments.
Thank you. Rich?
So I've already mentioned it to Mr. Sereno. The project's located in the New York City DEP designated Main Street area. As such, they need to get a regulatory approval on a stormwater pollution prevention plan approved by them. So we'll review that when it comes forward. There should be a legend on the drawing which contains all significant features, referrals, as Mike mentioned, to ECB, Putnam County Highway, because it's on a county road. I think some additional details are needed, like there's a demolition of the existing dock and changing room. How's that going to be done? How the proposed features will be installed, so like a construction sequence for the demo, construction sequence, or a sequence for the demo, a sequence for the construction. It's not clear if there's electrical service that's going to be provided on the site. If there is, then that needs to be provided on the drawing. If not, then okay. You know, if there is lighting, then that has to be provided, right? Trench for wires and whatnot. It's unclear if the side yard setback of 15 foot is being met. That should be clarified. If there's a retaining wall, anything over 6 foot must be certified by a structural engineer. Site distances need to be, and calculations should be provided on the plan. It should specify the total area being disturbed. There is a patio being put in, so it's probably going to be under the 5,000 square feet, but again, you're getting a SWIP through the DEP. We want to make sure you don't have to get at least coverage under the MS4 permit with the state. It's located on Mahopac, so that's considered a wetland, so the buffer zone should be shown and delineated. You got to show the high water mark. That's the starting and ending location of the proposed dock. It will require the creation of a parking on site. The parking calculation must be provided. Unclear if there's sanitary facilities being provided. Most likely there's not. It wasn't shown on the drawing, but again, that should be clarified. And the applicant's already aware of that it's located in the 100-year floodplain, and they've submitted the FEMA floodplain application. It needs to be finalized once the planning board moves on this, but that's a fairly straightforward process.
Thanks, Rich. And all these comments, by the way, you can get from Rose. Rose will have all these comments so you can look at them and check them off and whatnot. Pat?
Just one issue in addition to what Mike and Rich raised. Well, 2 things. So there is, as Rich noted, a fairly large patio that's being proposed around the boathouse. It's a waterfront property. Typically, we like to minimize impervious surfaces next to the lake. So is the size necessary? If it is, could we do impervious pavers, not impervious pavers? So the size of the patio is a minor issue. One issue, so they appropriately filed an application with New York State, the joint application. And that's an application that covers everything. And in the application, they checked the box of what's the application for. And they checked the box for a dock. There's also, as I understand the plan, you're removing a piece of seawall and carving out a piece of the site to accommodate the boathouse. There's another box to be checked for excavations. So that probably is an excavation. I don't know that, and by the way, the state came back and said no issues with this for a dock. I don't know that they looked at it for the excavation in addition to the dock. So I think resubmit that document to DOS. Just to make sure they're aware that excavation is occurring in the lake and on the property as well. They may not have picked it up.
Clarified that. Yep, I agree.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Please introduce yourself and use the microphone.
Dan Monaco P. I'm preparing the drawings for Enrico Sereno. So Enrico's looking to build his boathouse. He's been on the lake for, I think, 30
Can you
something.
speak more into the
He's
microphone?
been on the lake for 30-something years, and he wants to build a boathouse. He's got his kids, his grandkids, and he wants to, have waterfront features, so that's why he's pursuing this. And as such, we prepared drawings and seeking to get a permit. we listened to all the comments. One thing to note, I think you guys may have received an uncorrected version of the drawings. I think the new version, which was submitted to Rose, will have the corrected setbacks and variances required, but we can talk about that and just
Either way, we
clarify.
could discuss it, but let's make sure we get it right, so we do it once.
Yes.
You don't want to go back and forth to zoning.
Yes.
You can get, like I said, these comments from Rose and go sit with Mike and Rich and iron them out. Things like they ask about parking spaces. I understand you live across the street, so you might not need 4 parking spaces. Right, how many parking spaces do you need at that site?
There is an existing parking space already,
1,
one.
but this says you need 4.
By code, it's
By
requires
code.
4. It's based on lot area.
Oh,
It's 1 parking spot for every 750 square feet of lot area, so it comes out to 4.
I think some of
we
these are,
can park across the street.
And that's going to be your argument for the zoning board.
so I think that's
Yeah.
where you, exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks. Same thing with, are you putting a bathroom there?
No bedroom.
Okay, because you'd be across the street.
It's across the street, yeah.
So I think a lot of these things you can, as Mike's volunteered twice now, sit with Mike and iron out,
Yeah.
and Rich, actually, right?
Yeah, my comments are fairly straightforward, and I suggest you go to section 15627, where it talks about that information. But yeah, it's really straightforward, just erosion sediment control, all those type of things, and Rose will get you the memo.
Yeah.
Dan, there's some things that ask about fencing needs to be clarified. You could probably clarify that if you go and sit and go through this. Let me ask the committee here if you have any comments, any questions. I love that idea. Yeah. Bob?
Yeah, looks good.
At this time, do you have any elevations or, of the boathouse?
We don't have finite elevations yet.
So as this progresses, we'll want to see them
Okay.
in our, because we serve also as the architectural review.
In speaking with the DEC, they had commented that there's no actual mean high or mean.
Can you
water
speak in the
elevation.
mic, please?
In speaking with the DEC, they had said there's actually no mean high water elevation for Lake Mahopac. I'm not sure if there is one that you have on account. They said they uses like benchmarks, like, kind of.
Well, you have a seawall, so it doesn't affect you anyway.
Okay,
The line's the line.
okay. Well, I think I was just trying to, follow suit with, providing elevations on the drawings.
Now, okay, I thought you meant for the length out over the water from the mean high water mark.
Oh, no,
sorry.
yeah, because it's up against the wall, yeah.
It does fluctuate pretty much, the height of the lake, so that is a tough one.
Is there going to be a deck on top of the roof?
Yes, that is the intent.
We have a height restriction, don't we, Mike?
Anthony's asking about
Height restrictions for
What's it?
boathouse.
Yes,
So we just got to make sure that.
yeah, it's in the code, 15 feet or 10 feet, one of
Yeah,
the,
and Anthony, you appropriately stated, you're the architectural board, you've spent a lot of time on boathouses and bathhouses in the past, so they should give you something.
Okay.
That's the reason we didn't put a peak roof on top, it's for the height.
Is the height on the drawings?
Yes, it should be.
It is.
yeah. I don't have the drawing.
There you go. To the ridge line? To the high point of the roof, is that?
Or equal to.
So Pat, this still needs the ECB and zoning, correct? Yes, it does. And ECB and zoning meet once a month?
Correct.
ACB meets,
Oh,
the
ECB meets
ECB meets twice a month. The zoning meets once a month.
I think there's too many comments right now for us to do anything with this, but we can probably send it to the ECB to get the ball moving for you folks a little bit. Then when you come back to our next meeting with some comments that you've addressed with Rich and Mike, then we could probably send you then to the zoning board. I think we need a little bit more information to send to the zoning board.
And if we can see the elevations.
Yeah,
And reapply to general services.
yeah.
Correct.
That's why I don't think we can go too far with this, but I think we can at least expose this to the ECB, let the ECB see this. I think that'd be beneficial for you, get their comments as you're working on the comments here. And the Office of General Studies needs to see this, right?
Right, and also, I think Pat said to notify the state that it's an excavation. So they may want,
Let me check. I believe, I think the EC may have acknowledged excavations, but yes, I'm not sure if OGS has. I'll review with them.
Dan, I think it would benefit you if you sat with Mike,
Okay.
get the comments from our super Mike, but in parallel, we're willing to send this to the ECB so you can get going and moving with that. Then you come back to us at the next meeting whenever you're ready. And if we feel comfortable with it, then we can send you off to the zoning board also, so we can do things in parallel like we did with the last applicant.
Okay, that sounds good.
The height of the building is on the land side, not the water side, so the fluctuation in the height doesn't affect it. It's from the land side,
Okay.
which is to your benefit, obviously, because it's much higher there.
And as Anthony mentioned, Pat mentioned, we do serve as the architecture review, so anything you can show us on the boathouse as far as what kind of siding you're gonna have, we wanna make sure it's aesthetically pleasing, that's our role here also.
Yeah, we can.
So tell us about the construction of it, anything you have, show us some materials, anything you have that you can tell us about, so when this boathouse is built, we say, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, we can put something together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
The siding is gonna match the house across the street.
okay.
Should be nice.
So give us some information on that.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion to send off to the ECB?
I will make a motion to send it off to the ECB.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think this will speed things up for you too, and hopefully you'll get your approvals. Thank you. Rose distributed the minutes of October 12th, October 25th, and November 9th of 2023. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I reviewed the minutes, made some minor comments. I make a motion to approve the minutes subject to those comments.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everybody. Happy holidays.
Thanks, sir.